Bringing people and communities together on seclosounds.org.
Your listening station.
Hi, I'm Terry Sullivan and welcome to today's Sticks radio show here on Seclo Sounds. Hope you're well this bank holiday and had a great rest. It's lovely having these bank holidays every couple of weeks, isn't it? Now, today my guest on the show is a lady who is the percussionist with the legendary band the Moody Blues. Her name is Norda Mullen. I'm going to be playing tracks from her album. In fact, she's going to be choosing tracks from her album, but first let me choose one from the album just simply called Norda. This is It's Okay.
The world today is sometimes led astray. Come what may, hey, don't let it slip away. Our days, gentle waves. Why don't we all just say it's okay? Hold hands and play one more day. To see children cry, teary eyes. Why don't we help them fly like the birds in the skies? Let's just show them the way. It's okay. Let's dance and pray. Beautiful days. Memories of smiles all the while. You'll find they'll take you miles. Gracious style, emerald tiles that you can walk on. Let's not make haste or lose our way. Let's all have faith. It's okay. Let's not give way or lose our days. Let's all have faith. It's okay. Why not have faith? It's okay.
On today's show, I have a musician, singer from America who now lives in Britain. The lady's name is Norda Mullen. She has a new album out, in fact, her first ever album out. How are you doing this morning, Norda?
I'm doing great, Terry. How are you?
Good. I'm fabulous. I must ask you, where's the name come from? That's a very unusual name.
It is kind of strange, isn't it? It's actually a made-up family Irish name. My great-aunt, her name was actually Norda Mullen. My name is Norda Mullen, and she didn't like her name. I think it was a very common Irish name back then, and she didn't like her name. So somewhere in her early 20s, she just went down to the official place wherever you could go in Dublin, I guess, or wherever, and she made up a name she'd never heard before. And it was Norda, and she said to everyone, "You will now call me Norda." And then I was named after her. So I'm glad. I like it now. It had to grow on me a bit when I was younger. When I was about 4 or so, I didn't really think I had a very good name. But now I like it.
Yeah, it must be one of those awkward ones when you ring up and you have to do something, and they say they ask you for your name and address, and you go Norda.
Yeah,
They go, sorry. Sorry?
Well, especially back then when I was young, everybody's name was Amy or Susie or Mary, and then there was Norda, It's like, what? So, I don't know. Like I said, it had to grow on me a bit, but now I'm happy about it.
Ah, that's good. You've originally were born in a place I've never been, Savannah in Tennessee.
Yes, Savannah, Tennessee, and then I was raised in Mississippi, so you might hear a little bit of a southern accent.
All the musical parts of the world, then.
Yeah, definitely. It was a lot of interesting influences I had in my life because there was the Mississippi. Well, there's country music, of course, because of Nashville, and then the blues in Mississippi. And my mother was Greek, and she played the mandolin and classical violin. So and then I was classically trained on the flute. So I have a lot of strange influences all wrapped up into one strange person.
So, hang on, your grandmother was Irish.
Yeah, my
and your mother was...
I'm half Greek, and then I'm a quarter Irish and a quarter Italian.
Okay, I better not say any more about that.
Everybody in America is a bunch of different things, though.
Well, I know I've been out there a few times.
Yeah,
and,
we're all a mix. So.
Well, I suppose the only true Americans they say are the Red Indians, but I'm not sure how true that is even, So, I mean, it must have been great being around sort of all that musical heritage. I mean... obviously, Elvis Presley has a bit of an influence around the old rock and roll era around Tennessee.
Absolutely, and he was born about 20 minutes from where I grew up. I grew up in Starkville, Mississippi. He was born in Tupelo,
That's
Mississippi.
Right, indeed.
And then he moved to Memphis, and so we kind of switched places. I was born in Tennessee and moved to Mississippi, and he was born in Mississippi and moved to Tennessee. But he was played all over the place. And to be honest, at the time, I just didn't even appreciate it. I just thought he was some kind of country guy that was, all over the radio for some strange reason, I think when you grow up with all this around you, you don't realize how amazing your surroundings are until later. At least I didn't realize it until later.
I think it's probably the case, isn't it? I mean, I've spoken to people whose fathers were big stars and they didn't realise, how big a star he was. I mean, he didn't do too badly for himself, Elvis. He had, countless number ones, few million selling records, didn't do too badly. He was a bit of a, So,
no, I was being a little too critical when I was young about it, I think.
Or maybe so. I mean, you've classically trained on the piano and you play the flute.
Yes.
What actually got you into the music, even at that early age?
Well, I'm young. I'm the youngest of 6 siblings, and it started with my oldest sister played classical piano. But then, like I said, we had since I had these 5 older siblings, and I hate to say it, but it was in the 60s. I'm kind of old right now, but anyway, I was influenced by all, they had all the albums of the Moody Blues and the Beatles and Bob Dylan and the Supremes, and I mean, all the albums were constantly playing in my house. But then my oldest sister played classical piano, so we'd sit around the piano and play, and like I said, my mother played the mandolin and the violin, and music was just a very important part of our family. My the Italian grandmother played ragtime piano, and my grandfather played the organ, and my aunt and cousins played the marimba, and it was very strange. So I just thought that's what everybody did. You just sit around and play instruments all the time. So that was just my upbringing, and I just, I can't imagine it not being like that.
Well, you mentioned some of the sort of iconic bands. I mean, I read that when you were 10 years of old, you heard the big hit of the year, which was the Moody Blues, "Nights in White Satin."
Yes,
that blew you away.
Yeah, it blew me away, and it blew me away. But also, I've told this story before. I hate to repeat myself, but I will. My sister was having this party It was in the late 60s, just around 69 or 70. I was the baby sister. I wasn't allowed to go to the party. They were all the cool hippies in the next room, and the door was closed. And my sister said, "Don't come to my party," because she wanted to be cool and not have her little sister there. But she kept playing this album. I think it's Days of Future Past. Am I right? I hope. With Nights in White Satin on it. And I had my flute with me, and I couldn't go into the room with the party, but I didn't have any of my school books, music books to practice, so I just started figuring out this solo I kept hearing on the flute, and it was the first time I ever played anything by ear instead of reading music, and it was just an amazing night for me because I matched it, I figured it out, and I could play it, and ironically, I get to play it all the time now with these wonderful guys, the Moody Blues.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a little while. I mean, I don't think a lot of people don't actually realise the sort of, should we say, the lyrics of the song and what they actually mean. I guess at 10 years of age you probably didn't either.
No, I didn't either. I was more, when I was younger, and my whole life actually, I'm much more of since I love music and instruments and notes and chords and rhythms and stuff, I tend to, or did before, I tended to focus more on the music than lyrics, I think. It's only then lately, as I've been writing music, that the lyrics, no kidding, are super important.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of times I didn't even catch things that were being said, and especially at such a young age.
Yeah, I don't think anybody... when I was a young man, I thought it was Knights in White Satin. I thought it was a bloke in a suit of armour.
Yes, Knights with a K.
It took me till I was a little bit older than 10.
Yeah, and you realise it's a completely different meaning altogether.
Yeah. So, when you left sort of school and you graduated, you did some work with classical orchestras as well. Yeah,
I went to Northwestern in Chicago, and that's a very strict actually, when I was in high school and junior high, I went to a summer music camp in Michigan called Interlochen. And it's a very famous 8-week program, very competitive, super hard to get into, and it's the best kid musicians, children musicians from all over the world. And I got accepted, and I went there for 4 summers. It was 8 weeks each summer, and we had to practice probably a minimum of about 8 to 10 hours every day. And I played in orchestras. We would accompany Van Cliburn. I'm doing the Tchaikovsky piano concerto, and I met Count Basie, and we had famous guest conductors and guest composers, and I studied with the first flutist of the London Symphony, and this was all when I was 14 years old, so I really wanted to be in a classical orchestra and be a flute player. And then, and it was a very intense training. And then I went on to Northwestern, and same thing, I was a flute performance major, and that's outside of Chicago. And then I think I got a little, after college, just decided, I just sort of wanted to spread my wings a little musically, and I wanted to see the other side of music and perform and play the other part of music that wasn't classical music. So I took up the electric bass. And so I started playing in a 50s and 60s and country band in Chicago on the bass.
Was that cool?
And it was fantastic.
Was that Causes for Passion?
No, that's not Cause for Passion. Then that came a little bit later. This first one, I just had to learn the bass. And then, yes, Cause for Passion was in the early 80s, and it was during the whole punk and underground scene in Chicago. And in that band, I was actually playing marimba and keyboards and percussion. So, and we were quite well known. We had quite a following in Chicago in the underground world, along with Ministry. That band, I don't know if you've heard of them, but Al Jorgensen with Ministry, and then another band called The Way Moves. All three of these bands, mine included, was managed by the same guy, Pete Katzis, who's now a huge manager. I don't know who he manages, but huge. And we had a great following and played a lot out in Chicago, and it was fantastic. And then I moved to L.A. because I was super tired of being cold.
LA's a lovely place.
LA's a lovely place, and it's warm all the time, but, it's okay to live in England now, too. I love all these different experiences I've had in my life. I was in LA quite a while, probably 23, 24 years, so it was okay to leave, but I had a great time in LA, too.
Yeah, you played with a band there called Booharang?
Bahurang is what it was called, and that's an Indian word that means many colors, and it represents, I think, in the Indian culture, it represents like a piece of music with different